Ma Jordan was like a little princess, beautiful as an angel. She was never sad, loved to sing and dance. She was also a fan of ladybugs. When M was 6 years old, her life was suddenly cut short. Her family had to travel a hard road for the next 6 years to uncover the truth and get justice. On November 13th, 2011, in the Canadian city of Calgary, the emergency services received an alarm call. A woman's voice pleaded for help.
911 for what city?
Calgary.
Do you need fire, police, or ambulance?
Ambulance. My daughter fell down the stairs, and she's not there. She's not conscious.
Okay, I have help on the way. Just stay on the line. How old is she?
She's 6.
6? Is she awake?
No.
Pardon?
No.
No? Is she breathing?
No, I don't think so.
The dispatcher immediately sent an ambulance to the scene. Approximately at 7:18 p.m., emergency services and CPS arrived at the scene of the call. Little Ma Jordan was unconscious and in full cardiac arrest. The girl was rushed to the nearest children's hospital. Dr. Guilfoyle, an experienced doctor who examined M, was shocked by what he saw. In all his practice in pediatrics, he had never encountered such serious injuries in children of this age. Ma had tangled and torn hair in places, a split lip, and a huge bruise on her abdomen which caused a ruptured spleen and partial damage to her intestines. MRI results showed that the girl had suffered at least 3 blows to the head, causing a concussion. Doctors also noticed a strange 3rd-degree burn on Ma's left palm. Without immediate treatment, all these injuries were incompatible with life. It became clear that it was necessary to call the police. M was kept on life support. The little girl was fighting for life. The entire medical staff of the hospital did everything possible to save M's life. But unfortunately, after 16 hours of struggle, on November 14th, at about 1:47 p.m., her little heart stopped beating forever. During the autopsy, pathologists found that all the injuries had been inflicted on the child a few days before death, and she could not have gotten them by herself. It seemed that M had been abused for a long time. Obviously, the version about falling down the stairs didn't stand up to any criticism. But who was behind this terrible crime? Ma Jordan was born on December 11th, 2004, to Kyla and Spencer Jordan in Calgary. The parents often quarreled, but despite this, in 2006, they had another child whom they named Lee Y. After the birth of the boy, relations between the couple deteriorated further, and in 2009, they divorced. A legal battle began for custody of the children. Each parent wanted the children to live with them. Eventually, the court ruled on joint custody. M and Lee Y were to spend time with both their mother and father. This suited both parties as the ex-spouses lived in the same city. 2 years passed. Kyla remarried a man named Brian Woodhouse, and Spencer started living with a new girlfriend, Marie Magoon. The children continued to visit their mother and father in turn. Despite not having a permanent home and having to socialize with her non-native parents, Ma remained a cheerful, carefree girl. She loved to sing, dance, and skateboard. Kyla and Brian were wonderful parents. They raised 3 children together, around the same age, and just adored their children. Kyla and Brian recall that even when Ma fell down, she never cried but just got up, shook herself off, and continued to play like nothing had happened. She loved collecting ladybugs. She caught them, put them in a jar for a few days, and then released them because ladybugs also had moms and were missing their families. Ma was always in a great mood. It seemed that nothing could spoil it. She was happy in any weather, no matter if it was raining or hot. She was equally happy to stay at home and go for a walk with her family. The smile never left her face. In 2011, the Woodhouse family was expecting their 4th child. Perhaps because of the great love and care of their mother and stepfather, Ma and Lee Y were a little spoiled and sometimes naughty. But Kyla and Brian easily found a common language with the children, unlike Spencer and his new girlfriend. When Em stayed with her father, she often acted up, made faces, and disobeyed. This irritated Marie Magoon, who did not have her own children and obviously had no idea how to properly raise someone else's child. But in fact, Em was not a problem girl. She always knew how to find positives in any situation. Even when family plans were ruined by bad weather, she did not get upset, but rejoiced at the opportunity to run in the rain and jump in puddles. But apparently, not everyone liked her smile. On November 13th, 2011, Marie Magoon called the emergency services to report that her stepdaughter, Em, had fallen down the stairs and lost consciousness. The woman claimed she didn't see anything because she had gone to make dinner, but suspicious injuries on the child's body required investigators to look for an explanation. The house was thoroughly investigated, and neighbors were interviewed. They called Marie and Spencer for questioning. The couple said that the children had been living with them for the last month, as agreed by the court. They allegedly followed all the rules. When the police showed photos of the bruises found on Em's body and asked if they had seen these injuries before, the answer was negative. Marie and Spencer insisted that the girl had simply fallen down the stairs, after which they immediately called an ambulance. In addition to the stepmother and father, Em's younger brother, Lee Y, was also in the house at the time of the tragedy. Only he could tell what really happened in the last days of his sister's life. Attempts were made to question the boy 3 times, but he was so frightened that he refused to talk about Marie and Spencer. Lee Y made it clear that he hated even his middle name, Spencer. Given the young age of the child, the investigators decided not to involve him in the investigation for the time being. Meanwhile, the whole city sympathized with the family of the deceased Em. People left words of support on Kyla's social media page. No one could believe that someone was capable of such cruelty to a defenseless child. 6 days after the tragedy, at the farewell service, Em's closest people gathered. During the ceremony, the girl's favorite song played, and a pink princess-shaped balloon circled above the coffin. People react differently to the death of loved ones and experience it differently. But there was one oddity that could not be overlooked. Em's stepfather, Brian Woodhouse, spoke of her with great loving care. He didn't hide his tears. He wasn't Em's biological father, but he was the one who was sincerely grieving for the girl at the same time. The girl's father reacted very reserved, if not indifferent. His blank, detached look appeared strange. How could one be indifferent to the death of his child, if even the investigator's voice trembled when he described Em's injuries and the moment of her death in the hospital? The primary investigator assigned to the Meika Jordan case, Calgary Police Homicide Detective Kyla, and his team realized that the cause of Meika's death was hidden in her biological father's house. It was obvious that Spencer and Marie were covering something up, but there were no leads against them. The investigators decided not to bother Spencer and Marie anymore, giving the false impression that they had been forgotten. So life went on, at least for Marie and Spencer. For a year after Em's death, they behaved as if nothing had happened. The police did not visit them, but instead, the couple made new friends. They attended bars, concerts, casinos, parties, double dates. They met new people and had fun. Their new acquaintances didn't even know about the tragedy that had occurred in this family. Investigators were convinced that Mike's death was not an accident. Marie and Spencer's story did not explain the numerous injuries found on the girl's body. Also, Spencer and Marie allowed themselves to speak negatively about Meika's behavior. It was strange that neither of them saw the moment the child fell, and it seemed even more suspicious that they did not look sad either on the day of the tragedy or during the interrogation. One of the neighbors told the police that he had seen Em at home alone for several days and wondered why she was not going to school. According to him, the girl looked exhausted. Her face was covered in bruises and scratches, and her eyes radiated fear. I saw some scratch on her face. Then I asked the mother, "What happened to your baby?" A lot of bleeding on her face. Then she say, "She falls a lot," she told me. Police soon discovered a recording of a call to the Alberta Medical Center made on November 12, 2011, just after midnight. In the recording, a woman's voice, most likely belonging to Marie Magoon, discusses with the dispatcher a burn injury to a 6-year-old girl named Meika Jordan. The day after this call, the children were supposed to be picked up by Kyla, but Spencer asked that they stay with him for a few more days. This seemed very suspicious to the police. It was also learned that just a few weeks before Mike's death, Kyla and Brian had already reported to Alberta Children and Family Services that M had returned from her father with numerous scratches and bruises. And so, almost a year after the tragic events, police arrested Spencer Jordan, 26, and Marie Magoon, 22, on suspicion of the murder of Meika Jordan. At first, the investigators questioned Spencer and Marie in separate rooms. They steadfastly denied all the accusations. Then, the suspects were allowed to rest, leaving them together in the same interrogation room. When they were left alone in the room, they began to come up with a story that would explain the origin of Ma's injuries. In the end, they settled on the version that the girl was very active, constantly climbing somewhere, and repeatedly fell and hit herself. There were some surveillance cameras in the room, and the conversation between the suspects was recorded. But this was not enough to press charges. Indisputable evidence or an admission of guilt was needed. In Canada, the tactic of getting close to suspects is often used. Undercover police officers pretend to be neighbors or random acquaintances and gradually gain trust. This process can take anywhere from 6 months to a year. This is the tactic detectives decided to use in the Meika Jordan case, as they had no direct evidence against Spencer and Marie. Shortly after the funeral, the couple meets their future friends. For a year, they have fun together, visiting entertainment venues, as if grief has bypassed this family. When the friends, who turned out to be members of a criminal group, confess that Spencer and Marie can become part of their gang, help commit crimes, and get paid for it, the couple immediately agrees. But there is one condition. They must tell what really happened on November 13th, 2011. Only then will they be able to gain the trust of the criminal authority. Spencer and Marie did not hesitate for long. Here's what they told their new friends. It turns out that Ma got the burn because she disobeyed Marie. The woman decided to punish her stepdaughter. She clamped the girl's hand between her legs so that she could not break free, and for several minutes, burned her palm with a lighter. Marie was afraid that the next day, when Kyla came for the children, she would see the wound and start asking questions. Therefore, she and Spencer decided to persuade Kyla to leave the children longer, supposedly so that Ma could spend more time with her father. In fact, they wanted to wait until the burn had healed, at least a little. The couple admitted that they constantly bullied Ma because she did not obey. Spencer pushed her with such force that she flew several meters and hit cabinets and walls. Marie grabbed Ma by the arms and shook her, pouring out all her anger on her. The girl repeatedly fell down the stairs, which was also a punishment for bad behavior. Ma was beaten, dragged by the hair, and had her hands tied. When the girl had no strength left and asked for food, she was forced to climb the stairs, and when she could not do it, she was dragged up by her hair. The child was kept dirty, not allowed to sleep, or go to the toilet. The bullying went on for a long time, which is why Ma developed a huge bruise on her stomach that required immediate treatment. Marie justified her actions by saying that Ma misbehaved, so she needed to be taught a lesson. The woman admitted her guilt only in that she went to prepare dinner at the moment when the girl fell down the stairs for the last time. In her opinion, it was this fall that led to the tragic consequences. In fact, During a conversation with undercover police officers, Spencer and Marie admitted to prolonged abuse of the child. This should have been enough to prove their guilt in court, but under Canadian law, such confessions cannot be considered evidence because there is a possibility that the suspects made up this story in order to gain the trust of their new criminal friends. In 2014, first-degree murder charges were laid against Jordan and Megan. It is hard to imagine the suffering and grief of the mother as she listened in the courtroom to the details of Spencer's abuse of their own daughter in the company of his partner, Marie Magoon. The poor woman held on with all her might, but collapsed as soon as she left the courthouse. A Canadian court refused to take into account confessions obtained during undercover police operations. However, detectives and the prosecutor did manage to prove that the injuries on Ma's body were the result of constant beatings and abuse by her biological father and stepmother under the guise of nurturing. They inflicted unbearable pain on Ma. Her freedom was restricted, and she had no opportunity to seek help. So far, all of these actions and lack of actions have killed Ma. Marie and Spencer's trial continued. Kyla and Brian attended every session. This close-knit couple in matching black leather jackets, surrounded by a team of supportive friends, commanded respect and sympathy. 3 years after Ma's death, they waited and demanded justice. In June 2015, Jordan and Megan were found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to a minimum of 17 years in prison without parole. Kyla and Brian Woodhouse considered such a sentence too lenient. They were convinced that Kyla's ex-husband and his new partner had committed all these atrocities on purpose over a long period of time and for the sole purpose of killing a defenseless child. After the verdict, Kyla and Brian filed several appeals, and so in November 2017, almost 6 years after Ma's death, the Alberta Court of Appeal reviewed the previous decision and made the very rare decision to increase the previous sentence, finding the defendants guilty of first-degree murder. The Supreme Court of Canada left this decision unchanged. Justice for little Ma was finally restored. This day was a real feast for Kyla and Brian. Kyla and Brian remember their little Ma with great love. They carefully treasure her belongings, toys, and notes. Ma's brother carries a special memorial keepsake. It is a pendant with a special glass window. Inside are some of Ma's ashes and a little ladybug. Together, they visit her in the Angel's Garden. Rest in peace, little Angel Ma. May your true family be happy. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who watched this video all the way through. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case in the comments, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'd also like to send a special thank you to everyone who has donated to support my channel. Your support means the world to me and gives me the motivation to keep making new and interesting investigations for you, my wonderful viewers. Thank you all so much.